right? So you can take some notes, right? Most questions I will deliver in today's class, you will also see in the homework and in the final. So these questions can be useful for review. So first, let's say what is the portfolio allocation? And you can see here, right? This one is from the Fidelity Investment, right, on the 2020, right? So basically, for everyone, you can holding an investment portfolio. You can allocate your money based on your what? Based on your goal, right? For example, right, most conservative people will invest 100% in the short-term loans or short-term credit, right? And this one is very what? Very conservative, right? It's very, low rate return also, right? But for some people with aggressive, investment goals, right? They can put more money in what? In a stock, right? In a stock, especially in the domestic stock, right? So for most aggressive investors were spending 100% of the money in a stock, right? 30% in an international stock, right? 70% in a domestic stock, right? And in the middle of these two type of investors, right, are either balanced or growth-oriented investors, right? For example, for the balanced investors, they will, allocate money, equally, right, in a two type of investment, right? So maybe half of the money is in a stock, right? Half of the money in a what? In a conservative investment, right? In a bond and what? Short-term loans, right? Short-term, notes and the others, right? So you can see 40% in a bond, right? 10% in a short-term notes, right? 15% in a international stock, right? And 35% in a domestic stock, right? So half, right? Half in a, the debt, right? Half in equities, right? That's for the balanced investors, right? So these people try to balance with the high and low risk, and also return will be what? Will be compromised, right? Will be compromised between these two, right? And for the growth-oriented investors, right? They will put more money in what? In a stock, right? In a stock, right? 21% in a international stock, right? 49 in a domestic stock. So total will be what? Will be 70%, right? 30% in what? 30% is in a bond and short-term notes, right? For example, right, if your parents has a retirement account, right, they have a what? They have a 401k, and 401k, they need to allocate their money, right, in different what? In different type of what? Fund, right? For most young employees, right, young workers, right, in the US, they will choose the growth fund as their 401k, right? So means they will put more money, right, in a stock, more than what? More than the money spent in a, conservative investment in a short-term notes and bond, right? But for the people with the age more than 50, right, or even more than 60, right, so they will change their allocation, right? They will reduce the exposure to the growth fund, right? But put more money in what? But put more money in a conservative investment, right? So you can see most household, right, if your parents still in a working age, right, less than 50, right, they will put more money, right, in a growth fund, right? And for the even younger workers, right, like us, right, if we have the age like 20 or 30, right, we will put more money in what? Aggressive, growth fund, right? But for the people with the age above 50 or above 60, right, they will choose more conservative investment. So that's the difference between what? Between the allocation for different fund, right, based on your age, right, based on your investment goal, right? You are more oriented on the growth, right? You can take more risk. You can choose these two, right? But you are very conservative. You don't like risk. You are risk averse, right? You will choose what? You will choose more conservative investment based on allocation of the fund, right? So you can get some idea, right, from this pie, right, this pie chart, right, how you can organize your portfolios, right, in your individual investment, right? I hope this table can give you some, ideas, right, ideas. And one student that is asked, what would be a good company to open a mutual fund or IRA? For the mutual fund IRA, there are many companies they can do that, right? For example, Fidelities, right? Fidelities, right? And also you can open a mutual fund, right? Also in the other insurance company and the investment companies, right? For me, right? For all the teachers, right? All the college workers, right? Our fund is in a TIAA, right? TIA. So TIA is also offer, IRA, right? And the Roth IRA, right? But for the individuals, right? If you're not hired by any company, right? You can consider about fidelities, right? And if you're working for a company, your company will tells you, right, which companies you can put your money, right, into the, either mutual fund or the IRA or the, retirement fund, right? And then you can see in these lectures, we already measure these two in our lectures on YouTube, right? One is the return, one is the risk, right? Return is itself as what? Expected, right? Average, right? Expected average, right? We will see the calculation very soon in today's class, right? And the risk is measured by what? It's measured by the standard, right? Deviations, right? So this is very famous measure for the return and risk for our financial investment, right? And this economist, right, design the mean risk analysis, right? He got a Nobel Prize based on these theories, right? So the average, right, return is got gains, right, for the stock, right? And what's the risk for the stock is the what? It's the standard deviation of what? Return, right? So you can collect, 12 months return, or you're collecting the daily return for a whole year, right? If you take an average, right? So average will be put on a horizontal or put on a vertical axis, right? And then you solve the sigma of what? The daily return or monthly return you put into the horizontal axis, right? So this one we call a mean variance, right? Study, right? So we study the return, right? We study the risk, right? So this graph is very famous, right? Even wins a Nobel Prize, right? So based on this return and risk analysis, we can place our different investment instruments, right, on the curve, right, on this curve, right? You can see here, this one is the 100% inward, in short-term notes, right, and short-term what? Short-term zones, right, or short-term credits, right? Like what? For example, the cash actually also belong to what? Short-term investment, right? So this one is what? This one is the low risk, also what? Low return, right? So that's why this dot is placed in this place, right? And if you put more money into the risky investment, right? For example, you put more money in a stock and also some bond, right? So this one gets what? More riskier, right? And also more what? More return. So with the curve moving to the up, right? We have the more risk, right? And also what? More return, right? Because the sigma is increasing, right? Also expected returns also increasing, right? So that's why we say based on the trend of the curve, right? You can see these allocations get more risk and according what more return, right? So that's the curve tells us about, right? You can also match this chart, right, with the numbers below, right, in the tables, right? You can see the return and the what risk, right, accordingly, right? And you can see for the most aggressive investment, right? That means all the monies in a stock, right? 70% in the domestic stock, 30% in the international stock, right? You can see our return can be realized with what? 10%. Our risk is about what? 18%, right? But for our most conservative investment, right, return is only 3.4%, right? Less than a half of the most aggressive return, but also risk is also much less, right? It's only less than what? 1%, right? So you can say if you want to get a higher return, you want to take what? More risk, right? There's a what? There is a trade-off, right? There's a trade-off, right? So if you are very, aggressive investors, right, you can choose the more aggressive investment. Means you are willing to take what? More risk, right? But if you are conservative investment, right, you will should take what? Less risky and less return, right, portfolios, right? So okay, so if my maybe my connections, right, it's not very stable, right? I think now will be good, right? Because I saw my signal, right? It's not stable, right, on my screen. But I think now it should be fine. That should be fine. Okay, so I just, describe the curve here, right? So means this one is the most risky investment, right? So that means the aggressive investors will put 100% of money in what? In a stock, right? And then 30% in a international stock, and 70% in a what? In a domestic stock, right? So this is the most risky investment, but return is also what? Also high, right? Return is 10%. Risk is 18%, right? 18%, right? And for the most conservative investment, right? Return is what? Return is 3.4%. My risk is what? Less than 1%, right? Such a big difference between these two portfolios, right? You can see a difference, right? So if you want to take more return, you want to what? You want to also take what? More risk, right? So risk and return, there should be a trade-off, right? You cannot realize a high return but with less risk, right? There must be a trade-off, right, between risk and return, right? That's the curve tells us about, right? So let's take some questions, right, about our chapters. So you can see this is the examples we already presented, right, in the lectures on the blackboard, right? You can see our calculations forward for expected return, right? And also forward for the risk, right? For risk. How to solve expected return? Suppose there are 3 scenarios, right? You can see the P means the pessimistic, right? M means what? O means the optimistic, right? M means the mild, right? So our economists have 3 situations, right? And we also have different probability for different what? Different trend, right? About 25% our economists will go to pessimistic, right? 30% our economists will be optimistic, right? And return in different situations will be also different, right? You can see here, right? When our economy is in a pessimistic, right, return should be 10%, right? When our economy is the is in a mild growth, right? The return will be 12%, while our economy is in a optimistic, right? Then our return is 16%, right? So how to solve our expected return, right? You can see our calculations here, right? Will be the probability times return for different what? For different scenarios, right? So probability times return, we will solve the return in these columns, right? So this column is solved use the probability times what? Times the return, right? And after you solve this product for each scenarios, right? You are adding them what? Up, right? So if you adding these three numbers up, will be what? 12.7%. And that's how we solve what? That's how we solve the expected return, right? Expected return. And our formulas, right, is this one, right? Our expected return equal to the probability times return, then to what? Then to the summations, right? Based on how many possible events you can have, right? So if we have the three event, right? So then it will be from 1 to what? 1, 2, 3, right? So you're adding three outcomes up, right? 1, 2, 3. And if you want to do this one more convenient, right, we can use a special function called what? Called sum product, right? So what is sum product? Means you take a product first, right? This column times this column, right? One by one for each row, then to what? Then to the summation, right? So these functions can solve this expected return directly, right? So let me use this one again, right? So we will tap sum product, right? Then choose the probability, columns, right? We choose the probability column. Then we choose what? Return columns, right? So let me erase the mark, right? So after we choose the probability columns, we also choose the return column into the bracket, right? So we solve the expected return, right? You can change this one to percentage, right? Adding more decimals, so it will be 12.70%, right? So that's called expected return, right? Now let's solve the what? Let's solve the risk, right? Now we already solved the return, right? Now it's our goal to solve what? To measure risk, right? How to measure risk? The first step, right? We must what? We must to solve the difference, right? We solve the difference between each return with what? With expected return. So the return of 10%, right? Minus 12.7%, you solve what? You solve the minus 2.7%, right? And then 12% minus 12.7%, right? You solve the minus 7%. 16 minus 12.7% equal to 3.3%, right? So you solve the return minus expected return as what? As the difference here, right? After difference, you got, right? You solve a difference squared, right? How to solve the squared? It will be the difference raised to the power what? Power 2, right? To raise to the power 2, right? Power 2. So you can say 2.7% square will be 0.000729. You will do the same thing, right? For the other, rows, right? So we solve the difference square, right, in these columns, right? After you solve the difference square, right, then you will, based on the formula we studied in the lectures, right, use the probability, right, times difference square, right, to solve each product, right? So probability 0.25 times the what? Difference square for the case of what? Pessimistic, right? Then for the, mild growth will be 0.45 times what? Difference square, right? Then 0.3 times what? Difference square. So you solve these numbers. adding this product up, right? We actually solve what? We solve the variance, right? Variance, right? Variance take our square root will be the standard deviations, right? That's the portfolio's what? That's the risk of what? Investment, right? That's the risk of what? Investment. So now let me put the formula down for these two calculations, right? One's expected return, one's what? Variance. So first, let's say what's the formula for expected return again, right? Our expected return, our notation is the ER, right? Is equal to what? Equal to the probability of each event, right? Each scenarios, right? Times the return in each case, right? Then do what? Then do the summation, right? Here have the three possible scenarios, right? So we have the three, right? 1, 2, 3 means you're adding three, product up, right? So P1 times R1, right? So this one times this one, right? Plus P2 times R2, right? So it's this one times this one, right? Finally, we have the P3, right? Plus R3, right? That's the expected return should be solved, right? Why we need to put a different probability here, right? Because every trend has different chance to happen, right? For example, there are more chance our economies will be in a mild growth, right? But less chance, right, to go to what? To go to the pessimistic, right? So that's why we allocate different probability for different what? Different scenarios to happen, right? So that's the formula for what? For expected return. Let's say how to solve the risk, right? Risk is already measured, right? Here, just another review for this formula again, right? So first we can solve the variance, right? Variance, we use the sigma square to as our notation for the variance, right? Variance is solved as the also probability of each scenarios, right? Times what? Times the difference squared. The difference squared is measured use the Ri, right? Each return you have, right? Minus the expected return, right? That's the difference, right? Difference will take a square, right? Times probability, right? Do the summations will be the what? Variance, right? And if you solve the variance, afterwards you take a square root. Then this one we call standard deviations, right? This is a measure forward for risk, and so this is a return formula, right? And this is a risk formula, right? So you can see this formula in the chapter 12, right, in more details. So here I just show you how to solve this one. Use what? Use Excel sheet, right? Excel sheet may be a better way to, to standardize these calculations, right? With a neat table to show the results. And so that's how we solve the return and risk, return risk. So if you have any question for these calculations, right, you need to review our lectures on YouTube, right? And also please use your time and home, right, to do these questions by yourself, right, to check can you solve the same answers or not, right, with these numbers. Right? I will post these tables, right, on the blackboard, right? You can download to check the details, right, for these tables. Okay, so let's follow return risk measurement. I use Excel sheet. And so if you have any questions, you can let me know. So next one, we will compare 4 investment portfolios, right, to see which one is the best. Right, which one is the best? Right? Is the B is the best or the other is best? How we should measure, right? How we should measure. According to our tables we have, right, in these two columns, right, we can plot these two four portfolios, right, into the, the plane, right? Mean risk Cartesian planes, right? This is a return, right? This is a risk, right? And we can plot this dot, right, to represent B, M, Q, and D, right? For example, when risk is 5%, right? The B's return is what? 10%, right? So the B is here, right? That's the B. How about M? M's when the risk is 10%, right? Return is what? Return is 16%. It's here. And for the Q, right? When the risk is 9%, right? Returns what? 14%, right? So this is the Q. And the last one is the D, right? When the risk is 8%, right? And the return is what? 12%, right? You know there on a this graph, right? But you cannot tell which one is better directly by comparing this dot, right? If you have the two investment, right? In this way, for example, this is risk, this is return, right? A is here, B is here, right? It's easy to tell, right? B is better than A because for the same risk, right? B offer what? B offer more return than A, right? With the same risk, right? B give you more risk or more return. Sorry, so B is better, right? It's very easy to tell. And also, if you have another dot, C, right? With the same return, right? C give you what? More what? More risk, right? More risk, right? So A is better than what? Than C, right? B is better than what? Than A. So B is better than C, right? So B is more than A is more than C, right? So B is what? B is the best, right? And you can tell which one's best if they have this pattern. And so you can see B is, with the same risk, B give you more return. And with the same return, C have what? C have a higher risk. And now you can make this, sequence. However, right, in this chart, right, we don't see any pattern like this way, right? You cannot compare these four dots directly with their what locations. We must do some measurement, right? How can we do the measurement? We use our what? Relative risk, right, to show which one is what, which one is the low risk, right? But with what? Same return, right? So let's do the calculations. With a given, for example, 1% return, right? What's the relative risk for this 4 dot, right? So we use the 5% risk over what? Return. So that's equal to what? 50%, right? So if you are given 1 unit return, right? Your B will charge what? Charge the 50% what? Risk, right? With 1 unit return, right? Our B will charge 0.5 risk. How about the others? We will do a similar calculations for the others, right? For example, for M, right, for 1% return, right? What's the risk? Will be 32.5%, right? And for the Q will be 34.3. D is 36.7. So if you look at these numbers, right, with the 1 unit return, right, which one charge the highest risk is this one, right? Which one has the lowest risk is the B, right? So B is the best among these four because with the same return, right, it offers you what? Lowest relative what? Risk, right? So that's the how we make a comparison among these four. to choose the best investment, right? We call this one as what? As a relative risk, right? And we also have a special name for this measure called what? Coefficient of variation, right? So coefficient of variation is a name in the mathematical and econometrics, right? In the finance, we call this one as what? Relative risk, right? So relative risk, the formula is what? Relative risk is measured with our sigma over what? Expected return, right? It means for 1 unit of return, right? 1 unit of return, right? What's the risk you should take, right? So with the same return, right? Which one give you lowest relative risk will be the best? That's a B, and that's a B. Okay, let's take another measures that we study in these lectures, right? It's about what? About CAPM models, right? CAPM model, capital asset pricing model, is the most important model in these semesters, right? And these formulas will be used across all the financial class you will study in the future, right? It's called a capital asset pricing model, right? So this model is measure what? Is measure what is the expected return, right? Expected return for your stock should be equal to what? Risk-free rate plus the beta times what? Market risk premium, right? What is the market? Market means what? Means the whole stock exchange, right? So here I use what? Use S&P 500, right? S&P 500 is our market index, right? So our return for the S&P 500 is actually recorded in these columns, right? So this GSPC is the ticker or the symbol for what? For SP 500. You can download this column also by yourself from the what? From the Yahoo Finance or from the Bloomberg, right? So you just search for the GSPC, right? That's the ticker for S&P 500. You can download this, monthly return, right? Monthly price, right? In this column, right? In this column, right? So this is our, S&P 500 monthly price, right? In this column, right? In the B columns, right? And for these examples, I use the Starbucks, right, to solve what? To solve the expected return. Right? So first, you can download S&P 500 stock price, right, with the same what? Same month on another columns here, right? So the C column is the SP 500, right? Sorry, Starbucks price, right, in this column, right? SBUX means Starbucks. Then we will measure what? Then we will measure return, right, in these two columns, right? What you get from the Yahoo Finance is the price, right? Now we solve a return. How to solve a return? Return can be solved use what? Use the price change over the what? Over the last month's price, right? For example, from the January to February, right? What's the return? Right? So you can do what you do. You can do the calculations, right, in Excel sheet, right? Let me do this one here, right? So our this month's price minus last month's price, right? So the price for the Starbucks, right, is in a C columns, right? So the price here minus the price here, right? Then over last month's price, right? This should be a return, right? For the what? For the March, right? So it will be equal to what? 1.91%, right? You can use the percentage. So that's the return for the March, right? You can see these two numbers are a little bit different. So why this price can be different, right? Why this return can be different? Because I use a small different formula to solve return, right? This return formulas I just finished is used what? Price change, right? That's the regular return measurement. I use the price change over the price and beginning. That's return, right? We just did, right, for this one, right? But for this one, how I derived. For this one, I use a more popular way in the industry, right? In the industry, return is measured use what? Use the ln, right? pt minus ln pt minus 1. ln means the natural log, right? So in our industries, we will prefer to use what? Use this way to measure return. Why? Because in the industry, they assuming, right, the price is a continuous series, right? So they don't use the percentage change, right? They don't use the percentage change to measure return, but they will use the natural log difference, right, to what? To measure return, right? So use the natural log price on a March, right, minus natural log price on a February, right, will be returned on a March, right, will be returned for March. We can confirm this measurement, right, to apply this formula here, right, to see the numbers will be consistent or not. So solve the, Starbucks, right? March's return, right? We will use the natural log difference, right, from the price in the March, right, minus the natural log in the February's price. And so we will do this one here, right? We will have the natural log is ln, right? ln price on the March, right? Minus ln price in last month is equal to what? 1.91%, right? That's the number here, right? Comes from. That's this number here comes from, right? We can do these calculations automatically for all the other months, right? You can see that's how I get these columns, right? That's how I got these columns, right? I will do the return for every month, right? From the very beginnings, right? On the 2015, right, until the month on 2018, right? You can solve return for every month for Starbucks, right? Use these calculations automatically for the whole columns, right? So it's very easy to operate, right? You don't need to solve the return one by one for every month. Once you plug the formula for 1 month, you can automatically drag this whole column down, right, to solve return for every month. Same thing, you can solve return for what? SP 500, right? That's our market return, right? Then you can solve return also for every month, right? You can see that's the column here comes from. So once you have these two column ready in your hands, right? Now you can do what? You can do our beta estimations, right? What is the beta? Beta is the number, or beta is the coefficient in our CAPM models, right? Risk-free rate plus the beta times what? RM minus RM. So beta is our key, right, to use this formula, right? So beta is called our what? Called a non-diversified, right? Non-diversified, right? Risk measurement, right? So beta is measured, what's the risk of your company's stock, right? Which part is cannot be what? Diversified, right? I mean, if a company, like in a certain sectors, if you combine with the other stock, you can reduce risk with what? With the diversifications, right? But for what? But for some stock, right? If you adding more and more into the portfolios, right? You cannot reduce risk anymore, because even you with the highest diversifications, right? The market risk, right? The market risk cannot be what? Cannot be diversified out, right? So beta is a measurement for what? For non-diversified risk. Which part should be what? Should be compensated with what? With the risk premium, right? Called our return premium, market return above the risk-free rate. Okay, so if you never studied the chapter on the 12 and the 13, maybe you need to review these two chapters, right, to get some idea for this formula, right? RF means the risk-free rate. Right? And beta is what? Beta is the market risk measurement, right? And this one we call a market return, right? Premium. It's the market return minus risk-free rate, right? So that's our CPM model. You can see here, right? Based on this model, we try to estimate the beta based on these two columns, right? How can we do that? We just plug this dot, right, into the Cartesian chart, right? The horizontal axis, right? Horizontal axis is the market return, right? Is the S&P 500 return in the horizontal axis, right? That's the column forward. S&P 500, right? The vertical axis, right, is the Starbucks stock return, right? Now we will just plot this dot one by one for different months, right? We got this whole chart, right, to plot all the possible months return, right, on this chart, right? After you plot this dot, right, you can insert a straight line. I insert a straight line. Is this one, right? Is this one, right? I put here, right? And for this line, you can estimate what are linear equations, right? These linear equations numbers before the x actually is what actually is the beta, right? So you can compare this beta on Yahoo Finance. They are what? They are consistent, right? Means our industry use the same way to estimate what? Market risk measures, right? That's the beta measures, right? So you are not required to do this one, right? But you need to know how you will get beta, right? From our, plot of this dot. Line estimate are what? Estimate are linear line, right? And this linear line is between the Starbucks return, right? And market what? Return, right? Market return. So the vertical is Starbucks stock return, right? The horizontal is the SP 500, right? Stock return. And then once you do the estimations, you got the beta, right, from these equations, right? So that's how we get the beta, right? Beta measures the market risk, right? So which company has the beta equal to 1 or close to 1? For example, we have what? We have the Microsoft, right? Microsoft is a big company, right, in the S&P 500, right? So they have a similar risk to the whole market, right? Which one has a high beta, right? For example, the American Eagle, right? It's a fashion company, right? So they are not a necessity, right, for most household, right? While our economies go to a downside, right? People will reduce spending on what? On purchase the clothes and the other stuff you are not required to use, right? During the regular life, right? So these companies are what? High beta, right? For example, 3, right? Means when market increase by or reduce 1%, right? Your companies will be even what? Loss small, right? During the what? During the financial recession, right? You are more volatile than the market, right? But SP 500 has a similar volatility as what? As the Microsoft, right? Because their beta, right? Because their beta equal to 1, right? This is market risk, right? Market risk. And which company has a beta even less than 1? For example, right? Some grocery company, right? Even when the market go to the downside or market go to a volatile, right? The consumer still need to buy the grocery, still need to buy the food, right? For example, like the Kroger, right? And Walmart, right? And also utility companies, right? And for example, PSEG, right? These company has the beta what? Less than 1, right? So even, the market are volatile, people's demand for the grocery, right? And utilities will be still stable, right? For example, during the pandemic, right? Most people will not buy any, consumption on luxury brands anymore, right? That's why you see the Neiman Marcus, right? Fell for the bankruptcy, right? Because people's demand for the luxury goods, right? Luxury, brands are going down quickly during the recession or during the pandemic, right? But people's demand for the food, for grocery, right? For utility will be still stable, right? So why these companies, have the beta less than 1, I think this makes sense, right? For example, if you look at the stock, right? Walmart and, Costco, right? Or maybe the Amazon, right? All these one offer what? Offer the grocery, right? For the, online orders, right? So their stock are very robust, right? During the recession or during what? Pandemic, right? So if you look at Walmart, right, stock price are continue moving up, right? Even for the March and February, right? The whole market are very tumbled, but Walmart and Amazon stock are still very robust, right? Because people demand for the grocery will be usually stable, right? Will be not like the other industries, right? Will be more volatile, right, during the recessions. So that's our beta, right? How to measure it, right? So I don't want you to, to try to, stimulate the beta by yourself, right? But what you need to understand is how you get the beta. It's not from the, a simple formula, right? Beta is measured by what? By measure the linear, right, correlations, right, between the two columns. One is the market return, right? One is the stock return, right? And you use the linear correlations, the linear graph, right, to measure this coefficient, and this called beta, right? So that's the beta comes from. Now let's return to our lectures, right? We will see some examples. So let's say these questions, right? Nicole bought 100 shares of the Cisco Systems stock for $30 per share, right? On January 1st, 2013. And after Nicole bought this stock, right, he received a dividend $2 per share at the end of this year, right? And also, right, he got the price of this what? Dividend, right? For the next year forward, $3. So he received two dividends, right? One is $2 on 2013, $3 on 14, and also $4 onward on 15. Then he sell his stock forward for $33 per share onward 2015. What was Nicole's realized holding period return? So how much Nicole received, right, will be his return, right, for these 3 years, right? How much dividend he received? There are 3 years, right? 13, 14, and 15, right? And he received dividends, what? $2, right? $2 on 13, right? $3 on 14, right? $4 on 15, right? Then also he sell the what? He sell the stock, right, on the 15 onward for $33, right? So he basically has what? Has these cash flows, right? And on time 0, right, that's time 13, right? He bought the stock forward for $30, right? And you can see here, right? How much dividend he got? 2, 3, and 4, right? So 2 plus 3 plus 4. That's total dividend, right? And also he enjoy what? Price appreciate, right, from these 3 years, right? From 30 to what? To $33, right? 33 minus 30, right? So his return actually from the two part, right? One is from what? One is from dividend, right? One is from price change, right? So this part is called our what? This part is called our, dividend yield, right? This is from the dividend, right? And this part is from what? From the price change, right? So this part is called our dividend, right? And this part from the price change, right? So you have the 2 plus 3 plus 4 will be 9. 9 plus 3 will be what? 12. 12 over 30 equal to what? 40%, right? So his total realized holding period return equal to 40%, right? And this 40% comes from the two parts. One's what? One's dividend, right? Dividend is what? 9 over 30 equal to 30% what? The dividend yield, right? Dividend yield equal to 30%, right? What's the price change, right? In the percentage is called our capital gain or loss, right? So we have the $3 change, right? Over base 30, right? Equal to a 10%. So our 40% return has the two part. 30% from dividend yield, 10% from what? Capital gain, right? And you can see this stock, Cisco stock, right, has small dividend yield than what? Than capital gain. Why this one can happen? Because for a matured company, right, they don't have too much chance to grow fast, right? Like the IT company, they are grow fast, right? But they don't have what? Too much dividend. But Cisco is a matured company, right? Company already have the big size, right? They have the established consumer, right? So their stock will pay what? Pay dividend, right? So there are two investors in the market. One investors, they willing to take what? More dividend, right? And the other investors are looking forward capital gain, right? So what's your type of your investment, right? Let's make decisions, right? So there are two investors in a market. One is looking forward for dividend, right? One is willing to get out capital gain. So in my previous, teaching in the other schools, right? One student told me, right, he only chose stock pay the dividend stable, right, every year, right? So he tried to look for the companies pay the stabilized dividend, and then these company stock are very cheap, right, and not growing fast, but they pay the dividend, right? So he can still enjoy the dividend income, right, for every quarter, right? For example, he bought a stock only, $20 per share, right? But this stock pay what? Pay, $1 as dividend every quarter, right? So even he don't have the big chance for the stock price to going up, right? But he can receive what? $4 as what? As dividend every year. It will be still a good income for this investment, right? But for the other investors, right, they will fund some stock for the capital gain, right? Like the Amazon, right? Like the Google, right? And the other, technology or pharmaceutical companies, they don't pay any dividend, but their stock price going up quickly, right? So our goal is to realize our capital gain, right? So maybe in the future, in the questions, I will asking you, right? Which one is the capital gain, right? Which one is the dividend yield? You must know the difference. Next one, the total return, right? Like I already mentioned in this part, right? Including the two parts. One is what? One is the change in the price, right? And this one will divide by what? Beginning of the price as the price change in what? In percentage, right? And also including what? Including the cash distributions, right? During this period for what? For dividend. And the capital gain can be what? Can be also loss, right? If the price going down for this stock, then we will realize a capital loss. So basically, you have the two parts of the calculation for return, right? One's dividend, one's the capital gain, capital loss. So these questions in the homework try to help you to review this concept, right? For how to measure what? Holding period return, right? Next one, if a manager requires greater return when the risk increase, then these investors are what? Are risk averse. Risk averse means what? To take a one more risk, you asking for what? A higher what? Return. So risk averse, you can say here, right? For an increase of what? Risk, right? You need to have a what? Higher return to what? To compensate, right? So your compensation for the risk should be higher and higher, right? So if this is risk and this is return, right? You can see our return will be increasing unproportionally, right? Will be exponentially, right? In the future when you increase the risk, right? With increase of risk, your return must be increased even more, right? Even more, right? So that's our risk averse what investors. So which one is what? Risk taker. For risk taker, you are not, risk averse. With the same risk, right? You asking for what? Less return, right? So with the increase of risk, right? You're asking for less and less what? Return, right? So that's for a risk taker, right? Risk taker. Okay, so this one is something we just did, right? In the Excel sheet, right? Here we have our questions in our homework and in the final to measure what? To measure return, risk, and what? Relative risk, right? So that's the three measure we need to do, right? In the homework and in the final, right? So first one, what is expected return? Expected returns is the probability times return ln to what? Ln to the summations, right? So we have the 0.25 times the 5 plus 0.55 times 10 plus 0.2 times 13, right? All these terms are in a percentage, right? So you can solve what? 9.35%. That's how to solve expected return, right? If you have any questions, you can type in the chat. Right? Let me know if you cannot solve this expiry return. This one is very important because you can see the same questions again, right, in the final and also in our homework. Next one, we will solve what? We will solve the risk, right? We need to solve the standard deviation of what? Return, right? How to solve standard deviations? Let's solve this one together here, right? We need to do a difference, right? The difference means the return for each possible event, right? Minus what? Minus expected return, right? 9.35 time minus 9.35, right? 30 minus 9.35, right? That's the difference. It's called a difference, right? Difference between each individual return, right? Minus the average return, right? So this difference will take our square, right? That difference square must 2 times what? Probability. And after that, you will do what? Summations, right? So we will use the 0.25 times, 4.35% square, right? Square plus 0.55, right? Times what? 0.65% return square, right? Last one will be 0.2 times 3.75% square, right? And this one is for the pessimistic, right? And this one is forward for the most likely, right? Most likely, right? And this one is for optimistic. So there are 3 terms here, right? And with probability times the difference square for each term, right? And for these calculations, you solve what? You solve the variance, right? But variance take a square root will be the what? Will be the risk. So after you solve these summations, right? Then you need to take a square root, right? You got what? You got the standard deviations. That's number 2.76 percent, right? 2.76%. So this is called our, this is called a risk, right? Or you can call it standard deviations, right? This is a measure of risk, right? And this is a expected return, right? That's the number we apply to here, right? Last one, we need to solve what? Coefficient of what? Variation, right? Coefficient of variation is a measure of what? Relative risk, right? Relative risk is measured use our sigma, right? Over expected return, right? Over expected return. So we use what? We use the 2.76% divided by 9.35%, right? We solve what? We solve the 0.295 forward for coefficient of what? Variations, right? That's the 3 number here comes from, right? You will see these calculations also in the homework and also in the final. Please take some notes for this part, right? And then let's see the okay. So if you have any questions, right, please let me know, right? Especially for this measurement, right? It's very important, right? Please take some notes for these formulas, right? So this is expected return, right? It's the summation of the PI times what? RI, right? PI is here, right? This is the PI probability for each what? Each event, right? I is the event, right? And this is the return for each event, right? So PI times RI to the summations expected return here comes from, right? for the sigma, right? Sigma squared equal to the pi times Ri minus expected return, right? The difference, right? Square times probability, right? Do the summations, then take out square root, right? Is the sigma. And where this expected return comes from, right? For the second calculations, right? This one comes from, what you solved in the first part, right? Last one is called coefficient of what? Variations, right? For coefficient of variations, measure what? Measure relative risk, right? We just did, right, in the Excel sheet before. This measure relative risk, right? Is use our sigma, right, over expected what? Return, right? So this is measure our, return, right? And this one measure what? Absolute, right, risk, right? Not absolute vodka, right? So here's absolute what? Risk, right? If you drink vodka, right? Here's absolute what? Risk, right? And this is relative what? Risk, right? So that's how to measure this one. It's very important, right, for this class, right? Okay, so let's go to the next questions. Combining two assets having perfectly natively correlated returns will result in a creation of the portfolio with a risk what? So if the two assets are perfect what? Natively what? Correlated, right? Means what? Means the two assets will show this what? This trend, right? For example, this A return, right? This is B stock return, right? They will show the trend in this one. So when A increasing, right? B will decreasing, right? Decreasing. That's called our what? Natively correlated, right? Natively correlated, right? Or you can see that A is moving like this way, for example, right? And B will be what? B will show like what? This way. So always what? Always opposite, right? When one is increasing, right? B is always what? Decreasing, right? So this is called natively correlated and imperfect case, right? In such case, right? We use which one to measure the correlations, right? In a finance and in a econometrics, right? In a statisticals, right? We use what? We use the rho. We use the correlation to measure what? Measures the connection between the two series, right? So the rho equal to what? -1, right? And we understanding the rho is a correlation measurement, and we also apply a rho, right, into the analysis, right, in our lectures on the YouTube, right? So here you can see our portfolio's return will be what? Will equal to the WA sigma A. Sorry, we measure risk, right? We don't measure return, right? We need to measure overall risk, right? Let's see how to measure risk, right? So portfolio's risk equal to the WA sigma A square, right? WB sigma B square, right? Plus the 2 WA WB, right? Sigma A sigma B, right? Then we have the rho A B, right? So when rho equal to the -1, right? We have the sigma P actually is what? WA square, sigma A square, right? Plus WB square, sigma B square, then minus 2 WA WB, sigma A, sigma B, right? So this one is a perfect what? Perfect square, right? A square, B square, right? Minus what? 2AB, right? And we know that one will what? Will equal to the sigma P equal to the A minus what? A minus B. If we take a square out, that will be the WA sigma A minus what? WB sigma B. So you can see our portfolio's risk actually will be what? Will be even less than what? Less than a risk, right? For what? For either asset, because that's the difference between what? Two individual asset risk, right? We take a difference, right? And for the problems where you don't need to memorize or apply this formula, I just want to give you more extensions that we have done, right, in the lectures on YouTube, right? And for you to solve this problem, you don't need to apply this formula if you don't want, right? Just use your what? Common sense, right? If the two assets are moving totally opposite, right? When you put them into our portfolios, your risk will be even what? Even further reduced, right? For example, if the A is what? Is the Dollar Tree, right? Dollar Tree, stock, right? The B is what? B is the LVMH, right? B is the luxury, company stock, right? A is the, Dollar Tree, right? Stock, right? If you put them together, right? So for example, when economies go to what? Go to recession, right? Dollar Tree will performing good, right? But when the economy, grows very fast, right? People will buy more, luxury goods, right? So these two will hedging each other, right? During different what? Economic cycles, right? They will hedge each other's. So that's why you can say if you put them together into one portfolios, risk will be even lower, right? For both what? For both stocks, right? Because when the economy in a rainy days, right? You will have the Dollar Tree, right, to perform well, right? But in the sunny days, right, you have the LVMH perform better. So both will, performing good, right, in different cycle, right? So you can see our risk will be even reduced, right, below either asset, right? So that's the correlations, right? We already mentioned, right, in the lectures on the YouTube, right? If you hadn't have time to watch the video, please watch this part on the YouTube, right? Next one, if the two assets have the perfectly what? Positive correlations, right? Then what's the portfolio's total risk should be? So now rho equal to the what? Positive one, right? Means the two stocks are moving in the same trend, right? So if this was A stock, this is the B stock, right? They were moving exactly on the same way, right? So when A increasing, right, B will also what? Increasing, right? So they are in the same directions, right? In such case, you can tell, right, the return will exactly shows the same what? Same trend, right? So this is A, this is B, right? Rho equal to the what? Positive one, right? So our risk for the portfolios, right, will be what? Will be the WA sigma A, right, plus WB sigma B, right? Because our WA sigma A square plus WB sigma B square plus 2WA WB rho sigma A sigma B, right? This one is the number one, right? So here should be positive 2, right? So it is a perfect square. So when you take a square root, will be only including what? Two term, right? One is the WA sigma A, one is WB sigma B. W here means what? Means the weight, right? Sigma means the risk, right? Weight means what? Means the proportion of your money allocate, right, to different stock, right? So means, for example, you allocate 40% of the money in A stock, right? 60% in a B stock, right? So your portfolio's whole risk will be what? Will be a weighted average, right? Weighted average means what? Means the number or in between the sigma A and sigma B, right? So that's why we have the conclusions, right? The risk for a total positively correlated two asset stock portfolios, right, should be in between what? In between two asset, right? So should be between A's risk and B's risk, right? So that's these conclusions, right, we have, right, in our lectures on the YouTube, right? So when you do the multiple choice questions, right, you should apply this conclusion directly. You don't need to do this derive, right? And you don't need to use the formula to solve it, right? But you should choose the right statement, right, based on our conclusions we did before, right? So let's say some questions, right, to solve it, right? An investment banker, right, has recommended $100,000 portfolios, right, with the three asset in its portfolios, right? Three asset in its portfolios: B, D, and F, right? How much in the B? B is 20,000 what dollars, and the B's beta, right? Beta is equal to what? 1.5, right? How much in the D stock? D stock is $50,000, right? Beta is what? Beta is 2. For E stock, for sorry, it's F stock, right? F stock. F stock should be how much? Our total is what? $100,000, right? And you know the amount in the B and D. So what remained and what left from this $100,000 will be in the F stock. So it will be the 100,000 minus 20,000 minus 50,000 will be equal to the $30,000, right? So that's the total what? $100,000 in total, right? That's why we have the $30,000 for F here, right? And you can see here, right? $30,000 will be invited in F with the beta what? 0.5. So what's the portfolio's beta? What's the portfolio's beta, right? Portfolio beta is also our what? Weighted average what? Of individual betas, right? In your what? In your portfolios, right? So what's the weight of the B in the portfolios? Right? We use the total, we use the amount of the B's asset over total asset values. So weight of the B, right, means the proportion of the money allocated to the B, right, from this total amount will be what? 20 over 100 will be 20%, right, 20%. Weight of the D is what? 50 over 100 will be 50%, right? F will be 30%, right? So our portfolio's beta will be, B's part will be 20% weight, right, times the beta of the B, right, will be 1.5 plus weight in the D, 50%, right, times the beta 2 plus the weight in the F stock, right, 30% in the times the what? Beta 0.5, right? So our portfolio's beta will be 20 times 1.5 will be 30%, right? 0.3, or you can see 0.3, right? 0.3 plus 2 times 5, 0.5 will be 1, right? 30 times 0.5 will be 0.15, right? So the total will be what? 1.45, right? That's the portfolio's beta. Its weighted average, right, should be solved, right? Weighted average beta, right, based on how much you allocate, right, into the different asset based on the weight, right? So that's for the portfolio's beta, right? Next one. Nicole owns 100 shares of stock X, right? The price is what? $12 per share. And he also owns 200 shares of stock Y, right? Has a price $3 per share. What's the weight of the Nicole's portfolios in a stock X, right? So what's the weight of the stock X will be the value of the stock X, right, over the total asset value, right? What's the stock X value will be what? What's the price per share for a stock X? $12 per share, right? Times how many shares? 100 shares, right? That's the stock X value, right? What's the total portfolio's value? The portfolios, right, including what? Both X and Y stock, right? What's X stock value? Is the 12 times 100 we just solved above, right? We also including the stock Y's values will be $3 per share, right? Times what? Times 200 shares in total, right? So this is will be the Y's values, right? So this is the X, this is the Y, right? That's the total portfolio's value, right? So let's do the calculations, right? 12 times 100 will be 1200, right? So 1200 plus 600, right? So we have the 1200 over 1800, right? So will equal to 2 over 3, so equal to 66.67%, right? So that's the weight of what? X stock, right, in the portfolios, right? So remained percentage 33.33%, right, will be in a Y stock. That's called weight. So this question actually try to help you to review the concept of what? Portfolio's weight. Right? Means how much money you allocate, right, proportionally to a different asset, right, in your portfolios. Right? Now let's go to the next questions. Right? Our asset here, right, has the beta 0.9, right? And risk-free rate is 8%. So this is risk-free rate, right? What is risk-free rate? We actually studied in the previous lecture when we studied, the bond. Right? Our risk-free rate actually is the what? Short-term, right? T bills, right? Treasury bills, what? Rate, right? Or long-term, right? Treasury bond rate, right? You can search this one on what? On Bloomberg, right? To follow risk-free rate, right? In the US market, right? So risk-free rate is 8%. And our return on the market portfolios, right? IM, right? Like S&P 500, right? These are portfolio for the whole market, right? Market portfolios, right? This return equal to what? 14%, right? Our beta equal to what? 0.9, right? So what's the asset required of return, right? We can use our what? CAPM model. Anytime if you see the beta, right? And you see the market return, for example, we will apply our what? Our capital asset pricing model. That means the risk-free rate plus the beta times the RM minus RF, right? Risk-free rate equal to what? 8%, right? Beta equal to what? 0.9, right? Return of the whole market portfolio is what? 14%, right? So 14 minus what? 8%, and that's the market risk premium, right? Market risk premium. Let's finish these calculations, right? 8% plus 0.9 times 6%, right? So 8% plus 6 times 9 will be 54, right? 5.4%. So total will be what? Will be 13.4%, right? 13.4%. That's how to apply what? CAPM model, right, for our calculation of what? Recovery rate of return, right, for our asset, right? Right? So if you have any questions for our CAPM models, right, please let me know. It's very, very important, right, for this model. CAPM model, right? Capital asset, right, pricing model, right? Next one. What is the expected risk-free rate, right, for the if asset X with the beta equal to 0.5, 1.5 has expected return 20% and the expected market return is 15%. And so let me also, if you see the beta, right, you will apply forward. You will apply the CAPM model, right? So our expected return is equal to the risk-free rate plus the beta times the market risk premium. Right, so we have what? We have the return of the market, right? 15% minus what? Risk-free rate, right? So let's apply these numbers in the questions in these equations, right? Our risk-free rate is what? Our risk-free rate is not given, something you need to solve. So let's leave this one here, right? RF plus the beta. Beta is what? Beta is 1.5, right? Times RM is market return, right? 15%. Minus what? Risk-free rate, right? Equal to the return for this one is 20%, right? 20%. So we have the 0.2, right? Equal to the RF plus 1.5, right? Times 0.15, right? Minus 1.5 times what? RF. While you drop this bracket, right? You must to times these common terms, right, to these factors inside of the bracket, right? So we need to distribute our factors for both terms, right, in the bracket, right, when we open this bracket, right? So that's why we need to times 1.5 for risk-free rate. So we have the 0.2 equal to the IF minus 1.5 IF is minus 0.5 risk-free rate, right? And 1.5 times 0.15 equal to the 225, right? And we have a 3 decimals, so that's 0.225. So let's move this one to the left. So we have the 0.5 risk-free rate equal to the 0.225 minus 0.2 equal to 0.025. So our risk-free rate equal to what? Equal to the 0.05, right? Equal to the 5%, right? Use 0.025 over 0.5, right? Equal to 0.05 equal to the 5%. That's our risk-free rate comes from here, right? So last questions. While investment A guarantees holders 100% what? $100 return, right? So A has what? $100 return. It's guaranteed, right? You will not lose anything. You are guaranteed what? 100% what? Dollars return. A is what? A is 100% return will be guaranteed, right? $100. B has a two possible chance, right? You can either get $0, right? Or you get what? $200, right? They are equal chance, right? This one will be what? 0.5, right? This one also 0.5. So this is a true false questions, right? The both investment is have equal risk. Is that true or not? Right? A is 100%. You can guarantee what? $100, right? But B with what? Half chance you get $0, but half chance you have 200, like toss a coin, right? This one is the head, right? This one is the tail, right? So once if you have the head, you get $0, right? But if you have tail, you have $200, right? So the same as that, both investments have the equal risk, right? This one should be true or false. Okay, so the 50% is false. So why this one is false? Can you tell me which one has more risk? Right? Why this one's false?
Oh, I guess it's false because the second one has the most risk. Because in a first investment, A, you guaranteed return of $100. So anyway, you will receive this money. However, in scenario B, you may not get anything at all.
Yeah,
So
you are right. You are right. Actually, you explain very clear, right? B, you have the half chance you will lose everything, right? So it's very risky actually, right? So you say if this statement said both investment has what have equal, you know, expected return, right? Then this statement is actually what true, right? Because both A and B has expected gain will be what $100, right? Because you say 0.5 times 0 plus 0.5 times 200 equal to what $100. So if I change the statement to what equal expected return, right? Then this one should be true. However, the statement is that this one has what equal risk, right? Then this one should be what should be false, right? So I think Philip already explained this one very well. But we can also to solve the risk for both investments, right? Use our formulas, right? We have studied in these semesters, right? For this course, right? But what's the risk for A? You can see here, right? For A, you are 100% guaranteed $100 return. So A has no risk. So A's risk is equal to 0, right? Equal to 0, right? If you want to solve it, will be 100 minus what? 100, right? This is expected return, right? This is your return, right? And this one has what? 100% chance, right? So this one is what? 0. But what is the B's risk? B has the 0.5 will be 0, 0.5 will be what? 200, right? So expected return for the B will be 0.5 times 0 plus 0.5 times 200 will be also what? 100, same as A. However, what's the risk? Risk should be measured as what? As probability times different square, then take a square root, right? So let's measure the risk for the B. So we have the 0 minus 100, right? This is by return, right? Times probability is 0.5, right? Square plus 0.5 times the 200 minus 100 square, right? Then we take as what? Square root, right? So we have the 0.5 times 100 what? Square plus 0.5 times what? 100 square, right? So we have the 0.5 plus 0.5 equal to what? Equal to number 1, right? So the sigma b square, right, equal to the 1 times what? 100 square, right? So you take a square root. Our sigma b is actually is what? 100, right? 100. And A is only what? 0. So B is much riskier than what? Than A, right? You can also solve this one to determine, right? B is what? More riskier, right? So you can see the difference, right? You can see the difference. And this difference square, right? Times probability, then take our square root, right? So if in the final, right, I asking you the same questions, but I ask you, right, if these two investments have the equal expected return, you should say the true, right? But if I asking you, do they have the same risk, you should say what? False, right? So be careful for these questions. So that's for today's class, right? So do you have any more questions for today's lecture?